Nutrition becomes one of the most important topics you'll consider when you find out you're pregnant. What should you be eating for your health and your baby's development? What nutrients does your growing fetus need? Is anything off limits? I mean, these truly are questions that we ask ourselves as new moms. Welcome to the Health Wrap, a podcast powered by Mediclinic, in which experts bring you facts about healthcare topics. My name is Lebang Kgosana, and I am the host of the super special 6-part pregnancy series. And today's episode is super special because we'll be tackling all those topics on video, as you can see us, as well as present to you a visual representation of the do's and don'ts when it comes to healthy eating for you and for baby. So to answer all these many questions that I'm sure you have, Jeske Wellmann, a dietitian at Mediclinic Sandton, is joining us in studio today. Welcome, Jeske. How are
Thank you. Fine, thanks. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's good to have you with us, finally joining us here on the Mediclinic Health Wrap podcast. Could you share a little bit more about your area of expertise and what your daily work really entails?
I've nearly 30 years of being a registered dietitian.
Wow.
So that enabled me to work in different settings, in hospital settings as well as private practice. So at this stage, I work at Mediclinic Sandton, mostly in the morning. So I see from ICU patients, so those that cannot eat, to those that needs education on lifestyle diseases or so, through all life stages. And then I also have an outpatient practice where I see also through all the life stages, and I try to educate patients on healthy eating and what the difference one can make with food on our plates. I think with my experience, it gave me the knowledge to fine-tune also nutritional education, especially when it comes to maternal health. Because the first 1,000 days of life is crucial, is really, really very important. And that's from conception up to 2 years of age.
Sure. Yeah.
I really think if you look at a multidisciplinary team approach, it's very important to see each and everyone's role in there. And as a dietitian or dietitians, we really make sure that we give sound nutritional advice specifically for the person in front of us. And if it comes to the pregnant mommy, it's extremely important to make sure that her health is not compromised, but as well as supporting that growth of her baby.
Yeah, of course. I think we kind of downplay how important what you eat is, even prior to pregnancy. But when it comes to pregnancy, that baby is literally dependent on you as the sole source of nutrients from A to Z. Like it is of utmost importance that you know what you're about to eat. And the old saying goes, you are what you eat.
Absolutely.
Now more than ever.
Absolutely.
You and your baby are what you eat, right?
Yeah.
When a woman discovers that she's pregnant, what are some of the immediate and crucial changes that she should be making to her diet?
I think the most important is don't do anything drastic.
Okay.
Don't try to lose the 5 kilos that you actually wanted to lose before you fell pregnant. Don't suddenly go and take large amounts of supplements or so. What's important is to go back to healthy eating. Reassess what you are doing at this stage and see if you need to change anything. Most moms will already look at their diets before they actually fall pregnant. And that's why dietitians are there to support them in that journey as well. But if it is there that you didn't plan and you fell pregnant, just don't go and do something drastic.
Sure.
Get back to healthy eating, and we will discuss that a little bit later. But it's very important to look at your own health as a mom, because your baby will take everything it needs from you. And that's, I think, also where vitamin and mineral supplements also come in to fill that gap where food on our plates can't actually always give you enough of those.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning supplements, actually, Jeske, because I was actually going to ask about that. Which supplements do you recommend during pregnancy? Which ones? Why? When should we start taking them? And also, what is the purpose of these supplements really in our diets?
Like you say, food needs to come first. Food is what we are. But sometimes our needs are bigger than what we can have on our plates. So when we are pregnant, we definitely have a higher energy need, but we also have more need for calcium, for our bones as well as for the baby's development. Omega-3, the anti-inflammatory effect in there is extremely important for brain and eye development for the baby as well. And then also a little bit more protein. So when we look at a multivitamin, I think it's quite daunting when you walk into a store and you have to have a look at all those kind of supplements there. So to guide people is to go and have a look, but specifically for pregnancy, because those will definitely have higher levels of folic acid. And folic acid is very important for development of the cord to prevent neural tube defects as well. Your other B vitamins, your calcium, your omega-3. So have a look at specific pregnancy kind of fine-tuned multivitamin mineral supplement.
Yeah, I must add, when all 6 times that I've been pregnant, I've had to take these vitamins and these supplements. I found myself even taking them after pregnancy, like after baby was born, while I was breastfeeding. They just have a way of making you feel better. I don't know how that is. It's probably just because, that's what they're meant to do. But I completely vouch for the supplements. I'm here for it. Another thing that I did a lot, Jeske, when I was pregnant was just drink liquids like crazy, especially water. I had this massive water bottle. It would go everywhere with me because I'm just suddenly thirsty. So why is hydration so important during pregnancy? And how can you ensure that you're getting enough liquids into your system while you're pregnant? And also, are there certain things that moms should maybe stay away from drinking, like certain teas, certain energy drinks? What are the good things to drink and what are the not so good things to drink during pregnancy?
So water is always the best for hydration. Okay. But too much of a good thing is sometimes also not good. All right. So one needs to go and have a look. Why are you thirsty? Is it because you didn't drink throughout the morning and now you suddenly try to want to catch up later in the day? So the guideline is generally up to at least 2 liters of fluid, especially water in a day, and sip on it. Don't just go and down it. Drink-wise, because you kind of get tired of just water, one can add lemon slices or cucumber slices or something like that in the water just for flavor. We need to be very careful with sports drinks or energy drinks and so on. They can actually contain caffeine or stimulants, which is not great for the baby or even for the mom. So sports drinks are for sports people, not for pregnant mummies. And then also fruit juices. I find a lot of times people start drinking fruit juice because it's healthy. Fruit is healthy. But remember, a glass of fruit juice can be up to 3 or 4 fruits in one gulp. So we need to be careful with not starting to drink other fluids than we are used to. And the same as with coffee and tea. Moderation. The caffeine in there, we don't want a lot of. So rooibos tea is always a nice option as well. And one can even make an iced tea at home where you use rooibos tea with maybe mint leaves and maybe slices of lemon or oranges, and then actually refresh on that as well, especially now with summer coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jeske, we often hear the term eating for two, which I kind of blame Western media. Movies and TV shows have planted that in our minds. But does your kilojoule intake actually double when you're pregnant? Like right down to the science. How much weight should you be aiming to gain throughout your pregnancy?
We're not eating for 2 adults. Okay. We are eating for a mom and a baby that's developing. So your calorie intake changes as your pregnancy progresses. So in your first trimester, you don't actually have a lot extra calories that you really need. But in your second and third trimester, then you really need a lot more. So your calorie amount that you need per day can actually go up to 15% more than before you fell pregnant. So that can even entail to even a controlled extra meal in a day if you look at the calories for that. And that we normally try to divide into snacks in between meals as well. Kilogram gain, that's difficult because some moms will tend to have a lot more water retention. Then it looks as if they gained a lot of weight. Others don't gain a lot of weight, and it's also very important then to have a look at why. So studies show anything between 8 kilograms to 14 kilograms. And also remember, it's not just the baby's weight that makes your weight as a mom more. It is the amniotic fluid, it's the higher volume of blood flow that you have, it is the breast tissue, all those kind of things contribute to that as well. So even up to 8 kilograms can be those kind of things, and then you have to add the baby's weight as well.
Sure. I think it just boils down to a lack of information because sometimes you will see a woman who maybe visibly doesn't look pregnant, and she's definitely pregnant. Our bodies are all unique, and pregnancies especially are always different. So you'll never always go through the same thing. And I think it's just so important to make sure that what you're putting in is the right thing, and it's the good amount, and it's a safe amount.
Yes.
Not to, overeat and overexert yourself, because #eating for two, there's no such thing, right? Let's look at, some more specific nutrient requirements for new mom and for baby. What nutrients should pregnant women really be focusing on, and why? Like, what are some of the more common nutrient deficiencies as well that pregnant women may have throughout their pregnancies?
We need to look at a strong foundation of healthy eating, because that will give us all the nutrients we need. We definitely do have a higher requirement for protein when we're pregnant, as well as for calcium.
Yeah.
And then your folic acid, and then your omega-3s as well. So when we look at a plate of food, all right, so specifically lunch and dinner, we look at half the plate should be vegetables. Doesn't matter if it's salad or stir fry or roasted veggies, but the more color on your plate, the better.
Okay.
That also gives us a lot of vitamins and minerals and fiber. Then the other half we need to divide into a quarter protein. So that can be your chicken, your meat, your egg, fish. Your dairy products can also fall under that category. And then the other quarter is your starches. That's your petrol. That's your carbohydrates that we need.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of fat in maybe the preparation or the salad dressing, whatever the case might be. If you have 2 of those meals a day, that will give us basically the nutrients we need, with if we add the snacks also that we need. Breakfast is difficult to actually have half the plate full of vegetable, because we don't really eat that way. So one can almost look at a third carbohydrates, a third protein and or dairy, a third veggies or fruit, and a little bit of fat in that meal. So that also helps with glucose control. So it gives you a fuller feeling, and that risk of that craving for something sweet is then reduced as well.
Yeah. Okay, Jeske, let's get into the nitty-gritties. I'm looking at these fruits in front of me, and I'm just like, oh, there's a pear, there's an apple, there's grapes, there's oranges, it just looks so colorful. And there's even some yogurt and some nuts. So give me examples of what foods moms should be eating and what they shouldn't be eating, and also what portions that we should be looking at, especially once you've just found out, oh, baby's on the way. As preparation, like you already said in the beginning, don't make any drastic changes, just some improvements on what you're already doing. What should I be eating, and what should I not be eating?
So let's start with not eating. Okay. Definitely we don't want raw foods, because it gives you a higher risk of food poisoning, of getting sick. And that can be sometimes quite drastic for mom and baby. So sushi, biltong, drivors, we need to be careful with, because we don't want to actually get sick. And I'm not saying it will make you sick, but your risk is much higher.
100%.
So we don't want that. And even products that contains raw egg. We actually want cooked foods.
Raw egg products such as?
There's some desserts like tiramisu and those kind of things that will have a raw egg. And so we need to be careful with that as well.
Like a meringue? Because I know meringue isn't necessarily
So meringue is cooked. It's baked. So that will be fine.
Good.
So that will be fine,
Okay.
I found with patients that I see is the snacks are always the challenging part, because the meal is quite easy to get around with if you have your picture in your mind, where does what need to fit in. So in the beginning of your pregnancy, a fruit, a little bit of nuts, or even some veggies and maybe hummus or something like that would be a nice snack. But later on, that will not be enough. And that's where we try to almost have like a mini meal as well. So maybe a fruit with nuts and some yogurt.
Okay.
Or have a slice of heavy dense seed bread with a nut butter and maybe a fruit with that. What's important is, and I've mentioned a lot of fruit here, is fruit is good to eat.
Okay.
But stick to a portion. So a portion is basically what can fit in your hand. It's like 1 apple, that amount of grapes, the nachi at a time. But you can have,
So a handful, basically.
A handful. Okay. So you can have even 2 to 3 fruits in a day, but just don't have them all at once. Because then you
Oh.
get too much glucose and then the
Sure.
blood sugar pushes up too high. So have a
Sure.
variety of nutrients again on your plate as well.
No, the
Okay.
portion thing is really, really key.
It is.
Because you may think to yourself, oh, I'm eating healthy, I've got fruits in my bag. But if you're eating all your fruits in one go, it may be not so healthy after all.
For snacks and even for veggies, late afternoon, a couple of veggie snacks with hummus or something like that, it's kind of refreshing because sometimes patients will also say, I get tired of just eating fruit. So you want something else as well. Variety is extremely important because you get a variety of nutrients then in as well. So later in pregnancy, so your second and third trimester, your snacks almost can be like a mini meal. So some veggies and or fruit, a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein and carbohydrates, because that also helps them to control your blood glucose levels.
Yeah. No, I get it. Jeske, speaking of food, what are some healthy food swaps that pregnant women can make in their diet? If we're thinking of alternatives, you've already mentioned the importance of fruits and nuts and the vegetables, the 50% on that plate. But as far as like switching things out, what are some of the swaps that one can consider?
So if one look at maybe snacks that people will eat before they fell pregnant, so maybe they will grab a bag of crisps.
Yes. Guilty.
So that will be carbohydrates and fat. So that's also not a balanced meal. So maybe rather than go for whole wheat biscuits with some nut butter or some cheese on there, because also it's crunchy, you feel what you eat. If you look at even a slice of toast, maybe with some nut butter on there, would also be quite a nice snack, especially later afternoon, instead of grabbing that packet of crisps.
Sure.
So I think on the vegetarian side or even the pescatarian side, we definitely need to double check that we get enough protein in. Because if you don't eat animal protein, your protein intake will be less. It's not to say it will be too little, but you have to work a little bit harder to make sure it's actually always on the plate. So again, if you look at half the plate full of veggies, a quarter of the plate then full of protein, but it can be plant proteins. And these days, there's so many products on the market on the plant protein side. So we can really use them as the source of protein then as well. And then your starch as a quarter as well. So when you're vegetarian and you eat dairy and egg, it's kind of easy to get enough protein in.
Sure.
But if you go vegan, it's a lot more challenging. So then we need to reach out for those products on the market these days. I know they are refined, and processed. You don't have to eat them every single day, but they will be able to give you more variety of nutrients as well as food on your plate. Legumes, baked beans, butter beans, lentils, chickpeas, those things are actually your protein source then. Then with your carbohydrate and then your veggies as well.
You'll be good to go as well. So everybody can get the right nutrients that they need regardless of their dietary preferences.
Yes, sometimes it's just a little bit harder work than other times.
So, Jeske, in one of our previous episodes, we spoke about the symptoms that women can expect while pregnant, obviously. And a lot of them, the bulk of those symptoms, were quite closely related to the digestive system. Can we hear a bit more about that and also the dietary changes that you could make just to better manage these symptoms? For example, what do you recommend for women who are suffering from morning sickness? There has to be something, please.
I wish there was a miracle cure for that. So a lot of the digestive tract symptoms are actually related to the changes in hormones, especially later in pregnancy, especially the progesterone. So it relaxes the muscles. So your peristaltic movements are not so great anymore. So with morning sickness, that's difficult because that's also hormone related, and that's normally earlier in pregnancy. So glucose control can help to alleviate some of the symptoms. So when you wake up, actually eat something that contains a bit of carbohydrates, maybe a whole grain cracker or a slice of toast, and then get out of bed and start your day. Try not to drink a lot of liquid with that, because then your tummy becomes quite full and kind of reflux and nausea all goes hand in hand. Some studies say that if you increase your vitamin B6 intake, that can also sometimes take a little bit of the symptoms away. But normally morning sickness, if you can still manage up to 12 to 20 weeks. That's normally when you really experience that. And some days are easier than other days.
Sure.
So we need to have a look at that. And I also think some of the people will easily say heartburn.
Oh, definitely. Oh, that's a big one. And that's also not just, it's like throughout the entire 9 months. It's heartburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it's hormonal changes. Also later on, because of that peristaltic movement, that's not happening. But also now the baby growing, pressing on everything.
Yes.
And this reflux can happen so easily. So small, regular meals and snacks are very important. Sit upright as well. So don't just go and lie down after a meal. So rather do like 45 degrees, maybe prop up some cushions behind you or on the sofa or so. Rather more dry fruits than wet foods. Things that can increase the acid production of the stomach, we also need to have a look at. So it's caffeine, which we normally reduce in pregnancy as well. Chilies or spicy foods increase that acid production. So be careful with those. And also liquids with a meal, because then it's the meal and the liquid, so the stomach is just too full. So we need to have a look at that. But also, if it's really severe, talk to the doctor, because there are medication that they can give just to help mom coping with those symptoms.
Sure. But Jeske, we're leaving out an important one: constipation. Now, if you're lucky and your mom who's not experiencing any constipation, consider yourself lucky, okay? Not everybody's as lucky as you, but for the mom who's going to experience it, what are some of the foods that I can look to better manage it? Because I just want to get back to, a regular bowel movement. This is a lot for my body. It's all new to me. Give me the answers, Jeske, please.
Fiber plays an extremely important role in preventing and treating constipation, but hydration as well. So fiber, we get different fibers in different foods. So we need a combination. So we need the softer fibers and we need the more harder fibers, because they have different roles to play. And I think also people will say, gut microbiome is like a buzzword. Everyone is talking about it. But when we eat a lot of veg, like half that plate full of vegetables, we eat our fruits, we eat less refined carbohydrates, we actually get quite a lot of carbohydrates or fiber in our diet. And that is supposed to help with that gut and actually have regular bowel movements. Water also plays a role, because if you don't have the water to make the stool soft, you will still be constipated even though you increase your fiber intake. But also it's part of hormone changes as well.
Everything is during pregnancy. Your body is just undergoing so many changes the entire time, and it all starts at a hormonal level. It's really just about how you manage all these changes and kind of embrace them. Even though some of them may not be very pleasant, it's just embracing that this is the time that I'm in, this is the moment that I'm in, and it's so crucial because there's a growing baby inside of me. This is a magical moment, right? Speaking of magical moments, cravings. Now, when I think back to my cravings, I had so many. It was never the same for each of my pregnancies, but there were some radical ones as well. But again, back to Western television and kind of, the modernization or whatever. When you watch a movie and there's a pregnant woman who has a craving, it's always at 3:00 in the morning and it's always junk food. And the husband needs to rush out of bed and drive to the nearest fast food restaurant. It's always quite a dramatic, whereas that's maybe not always the case. However, when should mommy and daddy start getting concerned about these so-called cravings? And how can mommy better manage her cravings for these so-called unhealthy foods? Because it is going to happen, but maybe not always.
So unhealthy food can also fit in a healthy way of eating. All right. It depends on how often and how big a portion you have. All right. So if you really feel like a piece of cake or a bit of ice cream, I would recommend have some, but don't have the whole tub of ice cream or the whole cake. Okay. A lot of times emotion also plays a role. That anxiety, again, hormonal changes also plays a role. That 3:00 in the morning waking up, a lot of times, again, it's hormonal changes. And then mind is going, like 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour there. But at the end of the day is that if it's in small amounts, it's not a problem. But it becomes a problem when you start replacing healthy food for just junk food. That sugar roller coaster we get from junk food and that heightened sensation of, that carbohydrates and sugar, we sometimes kind of want that because we are tired when we're pregnant as well. So we need to sometimes have a look at why do we have that craving? Is it because we are tired? Is it because we actually didn't eat lunch and now we are hungry here? Or maybe we fell asleep on the sofa, we didn't actually have a proper dinner and now we go to bed. So we need to see what's going on. But if it's really out of hand, speak to a dietitian, see where we are at. Maybe there is a nutrition deficiency that we need to actually have a look at as well. Maybe you forgot to take your supplements for a while as well. So it's not just one thing. It is a big picture that we actually need to look at.
Yeah, there's no excuse is what it sounds like, mommy. So if you're just suddenly having a craving at 3 a.m., maybe it's not a craving. It could just be an emotional or a hormonal change that's happening in your body. But the key, as Jeske is saying, is just to keep that balance. Just to keep that balance and you'll be fine. Now, let's talk about the safety of preparing food. Now, I'm very glad we're talking about this because I don't think we think about it often enough as new moms going into this new space. Am I equipped with the knowledge and the skills to prepare this food in a safe environment, especially now that I'm pregnant, considering the fact that I need to prepare certain foods? So the food safety is another topic that many parents-to-be have to be conscious of. So let's take a closer look. For example, what are the common foodborne illnesses that pregnant women need to be aware of?
So I think all foodborne illnesses is a risk for everyone.
Sure.
And again, for pregnant women, because they can get so sicker so quicker.
Yes.
And the effect on the baby can be quite drastic as well. So, and I don't want to make, like hysteria here, but things like salmonella, listeria, those kind of things are out there.
Yeah.
So the basic things that we all do in our day-to-day, where we wash hands, we clean surfaces, cold food we keep cold, hot food needs to be hot or kept hot, not just at luke temperature.
Sure.
Those kind of things are very important. You don't have to suddenly go and change everything, but if you know there's something you can improve on, improve on that.
Yes, 100%. And also these are some of the skills that you'll learn now at the start of your pregnancy, but you'll keep with you even after your pregnancy. And we kind of underestimate how many people maybe aren't being that conscious of these things in the kitchen. Because as soon as you start cooking your food, you're just like, tra-la-la-la-la, cooking my food, throw it in the oven, go about my life. To actually stop and wipe the surface, to actually stop and wash your meat, wash your hands. It takes a person that has been cooking for a while and is quite intentional about their preparation of food. So I like that these are skills that aren't just meant for pregnancy, but life in general.
For everyone.
I love that.
Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
So, Jeske, what precautions should you be taking when you're buying and preparing food? Now you're pregnant. What are the things to think about? Off the bat already, I'm just thinking like, I should be looking at the expiry date, right? Maybe hopefully that naturally it just comes to me naturally. I always go, when is this best buy? Because those are things that they matter in the long run. So what would you like to share as far as that goes?
Definitely want to have a look at the expiry date or the best before date or best use by date, those kind of things, because it gives you an idea of when it was prepared and when it's supposed to be good. But also have a look at pre-prepared foods. We need to be careful with that. If they sit in a deli under light, you don't know how long they stood there. So I would be very careful in that sense. And I'm not saying you can't buy from there, but be very careful. And even buffets, I would be very careful because you don't know how fresh the food is or how long it actually stood there.
Sure.
So go a little bit back to more home-cooked, home-prepared foods where you're in control, where you know where it is and how long it has been in the kitchen or the fridge or so. When you go out and you buy fresh food, don't go and buy for 2 weeks.
Sure.
Go and buy maybe for 3 or 4 days. Because then you replace it again. So what you haven't used, you can use again in those days, or you can see what's off, you can throw that away. So there's less waste as well.
Yes.
So don't go. Luckily, we don't have load shedding that much anymore. But
let's cross thumbs that.
But that was a very difficult time because you don't know if the fridge worked well or didn't, or your own fridge at home, because of all the load shedding. So don't go and stock up on large amounts, long time, for food. Stock for 3-4 days so that it's actually fresh.
Yes.
And that almost helps you to prepare food also every single day because you have it in your fridge.
Yes. Oh, in an ideal world, Jeske, I would have a full veggie garden in my yard where I've got fresh fruits and vegetables that I can pick from my yard because I know it's the freshest. If I had it my way, my food cupboard, my pantry will be filled with all natural herbs, all natural teas, everything natural that I can trust is not going to harm me. Because I've got this thing where I always wonder, how did pregnant women do it 200 years ago? How did pregnant women back in the day survive? They didn't have pharmacies that they could go into and just get everything over the counter. The earth provided.
Right.
So I still feel like in this day, I would like for more moms and dads to have that kind of view, which is not only dependent on the things at the deli that have been sitting there for you don't know how long. If you have the ability and you have the means within yourself to have a small veggie garden, to get more herbal supplements and just more natural alternatives, definitely go for it, more so now that there's a little tiny baby growing inside of you. This is like my dream. When I grow up, I want to have a pantry like that. So lastly, Jeske, do certain foods contain more risk than others? Should we be avoiding those foods, and how can we mitigate these risks?
So as we said before, like raw foods are definitely a higher risk of foodborne illnesses and those kind of things as well. But if you go again back to healthy eating, and like you said, your veggie garden, whatever, I think that is a lot of people's ideal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But even if you just start with a small veggie garden, and have just beans or tomatoes from the garden, the kids actually enjoy that later in their lives as well.
Yeah.
But what we need to have a look at is that there's no food that is forbidden to eat when you are pregnant, but there are foods that increase a risk of getting sick. So, for instance, and something I didn't mention before is unpasteurized cheeses are also important not to have, because that's why we pasteurize milk, to prevent any illnesses being transferred. So that's also important to have a look. And the fresher, the better. A lot of people think, it takes a lot of time to prepare a meal. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to slice veggies up every single day in small pieces. You can even put like this bowl of veggies. You can put that on the plate as well. It doesn't have to be chopped up as well, because that's quick and easy.
Yeah,
but you still get your veggies. Exactly. Yeah. We need to rethink what we want to put on our plates, but also incorporate the whole family.
Yes.
So daddy is just as important into this way of healthy eating as mommy and baby at the end of the day, because we don't want everyone to eat separate foods. We want everyone to eat the same foods.
Yes.
And even you with children at home as well, it's easier if everyone is kind of eating the same kind of food.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And if you build your foundation right now, when you find out you're pregnant, or even just before you find out you're pregnant, you start wanting to be healthier, and you put that foundation, it's there already.
Yeah.
You can just keep on building on it.
Exactly.
You don't have to start from scratch.
Exactly. You kind of just naturally flow into what you've already been doing versus switching everything up and going into shock by changing everything.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
If you're already living like that, it's a plus, right? If you already have your veggie garden, lucky you, because when baby's on the way, then you can just continue in that way. And I love that you're saying, start with 1 or 2 things in your garden. You don't have to aim high and go for like 10 different things. It's not a shelf at the veggie market, but just start somewhere.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on meal plans? Because I know with my pregnancy, meal plans helped me quite a bit. And it was that time thing where I didn't have the luxury of being on my feet every single day at 4 p.m. cooking.
Yes.
But I could do it on Monday for about 2 hours and then store my food in the freezer, that kind of thing. So from a nutritional expert perspective, what is your take on meal plans?
What I hear from there is planning.
Yes.
So planning is the most important.
Yeah.
If we invest a little bit more time in planning,
Yeah.
the rest is kind of easier.
Oh, yeah.
So for some people, meal prep works. Other people hate it.
Sure.
Okay. A meal plan can guide you in what you want to buy, what is available to cook or prepare. I like also to do meal prep beforehand, that I know for the next 3 days, this is kind of what's there.
Yeah.
And then you know what to do again. Things do change. You know, sometimes you do swap things around or something happens and you don't have that specific meal, but the right things are available.
Sure.
So a meal plan, I don't actually always like a meal plan because people think that's a diet. And I don't like diets
It's
at all.
not the same thing.
It's not the same thing, but
Yeah.
it gives you ideas also what to do, or even a couple of recipes, your favorite recipes, kind of have them in a file that you can go through them and say, you know what, this week, this is what we want to actually have. And if you have 2 dinners that's the same because you cook a little bit in bulk, why not? Because then you don't have to cook that next night.
Exactly.
So planning is extremely important. That grocery list is important. And these days we are fortunate to have online shopping where you already have your shopping list and you can kind of go through them and see what you really need because you can see what's in your cupboard or your fridge again.
Cart.
Absolutely.
No, definitely. We're living in a digital era, really has made so many things more convenient for us. But at the core of that convenience, it's just doing your research and understanding what it is that you should be eating, what's the easiest way for you to be eating, etc., etc. And if you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, then it says to me that you're already on the right path. So whatever stage that you're in your pregnancy, keep it up. You are doing so well, sweetheart. Thank you so much for joining us on this super extra special episode of The Health Wrap, in which we discussed following a healthy diet during your pregnancy. I hope now you're fully equipped with everything that you need to know. I hope now you can just go and enjoy your pregnancy, knowing that you are providing the very best for yourself and for baby. Now, remember to be sure to consult your Mediclinic dietitian if you have any questions related to your diet during your pregnancy. And most importantly, sign up for the Mediclinic Baby newsletter. We're going to put all the details in the show notes at the bottom of this video. So you can also contact the Mediclinic call center on 0860 24 0024 for expert advice and guidance, or you can email, WhatsApp, or SMS them. The contact numbers for each of these will be at the bottom of the show notes. And most importantly, subscribe to the Health Wrap podcast for more facts from our favorite experts. Thank you again for everyone who joined us this afternoon, and a special thanks to Jeske Wellmann for sharing her insights and knowledge. It was a pleasure being with you this afternoon.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.